Hello, hello, and welcome to Oakland Creates. We are here tonight with a awesome bevy of panelists to do the Healing Through Art Making panel. Uh, so I'm going to quickly pull up my screen and share it so that we can start right away. Can everybody see my screen? Feel free to unmute yourself because.
Yep.
Awesome. All right, again,
Yes.
welcome to Oakland Creates 2022 Healing Through Art panel. I have a awesome group of panelists. First, I'm going to take care of some housekeeping. So first of all, what is Oakland Creates? Oakland Creates started in 2015 as a way to provide opportunities for Black and Brown artists to showcase their work in a safe space that not only prioritized African, Indigenous, and Latino culture, but that celebrates diversity and sought a fair exchange for creativity and artistic experimentation. Oakland Creates developed into a mini zine fest, comic fest, showcasing zines, art, and comics from new and emerging artists in the East Bay area, primarily giving space to traditionally underrepresented voices. Oakland Creates also gives space to creators who work to build a conscious, uplifting, and holistic community. Just quickly go over a little safe space policy. I'm sure we're all aware that we need to respect each other. We're committed to providing a safe and inclusive environment to everyone, regardless of gender, gender identity, expression, sexual orientation, disability, physical appearance, body size, race, or religion. We will not tolerate harassment at Oakland Creates events in any form, including virtual formats. Anyone violating the safer space policy may be sanctioned or expelled from the space or the event at the discretion of Oakland Creates Art, Comics, and Zine Fest organizers or volunteers. Again, welcome. Our great panel includes Shani Ealey, myself, Avy Jetter, the Dear Diary Zine Fest crew represented by Holly tonight, Dustin Garcia, Gaia WXYZ or Gaia Weiss, Golden, Jianna Robinson, and Lawrence Lindell. So I'm going to jump right in and actually stop sharing my screen and let folks introduce themselves. You're muted right now, please.
My bad. Hi, everyone.
Okay.
It's so good to see people's faces. My name is Shani. I am, an artist, a zinester coming from Stockton, and then I guess raised up by SF Oakland area. Let's see what else. My zine making process started by quitting a really bad job. And so that kind of was the starting point for all of this little transitional period for me. I find a lot of healing, support, and grounding by tapping into Yoruba traditions and Akan traditions, especially regarding to our ancestors. And so I'm just really, really happy to be here and excited to see what everyone's doing.
Thank you so much.
Hi, my name is Golden. Oh, sorry, Avy, did you want to?
Nope, I was just going to say popcorn, just popcorn to the next person. Thank you so much for going ahead.
Well, I just don't want to be like, people be waiting because they don't want to go next, but I don't mind. I'm Golden. My pronouns are he and they. And I also got started on zine making because I left a job that I really was just untenable, really. And I've always loved books, and I've always made books too. Like when I was younger, I used to make little journals and stuff like that. But once I left that job and learned how to taught myself how to use InDesign and Photoshop, it was kind of a wrap because I realized I could say kind of whatever I wanted to. So, it was really just trouble after that because I was like, yeah, now I can really express myself. And I think one of the things I really like to make as a zinester, most of my work really focuses on, I have a pretty research-driven practice, and it's focused on uncovering hidden histories and just building power at the community, individual, institutional level. And I love creating things, resources like mental health resources and stuff like that for people. Because I find that in my search to find those resources for myself, they often it's like Toni Morrison is talking about the address of the speaker, and how when she was growing up in the 50s and 60s, you could really feel the address of the speaker and how much it was just not talking to you, and you didn't really exist. You're not legible to the address of this kind of imaginary white male straight person. And even in a lot of the self-help stuff that I have here at my house, it's very clear they're not thinking about Black people. They're not thinking about Indigenous people. They're not thinking about trans people or queer people. And I thought, and in fact, some of the literature is kind of actually, it's weird. It's like there to help people heal, but then it's also saying things that are very hurtful to people. And I thought I could do something about that. So yeah, that's me. I'm golden.
Awesome. So who would like to go next, or should I call someone to go next?
Yeah, scared. Come on.
I can go next.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dustin. I also go by T. I'm an artist and art educator, radical art educator. I'm originally from LA, and I lived in Oakland for about 4 years. I've been making comics and art since I could lift a pencil, but it's zine culture that really gave me a voice of my own and has allowed me to continue to give me a platform to create art. And as of recently, navigating for the last couple of 4 years, I would say, mental health and art have becoming more synonymous and more aware of that. And I now dedicate my life to creating spaces and in workshops and events to which allow accessibility to creativity, because I believe it is a birthright to every single person to be able to utilize art, not only to enjoy, but also to utilize to empower ourselves and empower each other. I really believe that art has the means to really liberate our minds and allow us to liberate each other. And yeah, that's why I do what I do.
Awesome. Holly, would you like to go next?
Yes, hi. I'm Holly. I'm one of the core co-organizer team for Dear Diary Zine Fest, which was the first personal zine fest that we created in 2018. There are also a number of people who help out at different times, but I'm one of the main four. All four of us came to zine making really differently, but my personal experience was through Riot Girl. I made my first zine when I was 12 in 1998, and it was based very much so on the 90s Riot Girl, sort of like Pacific Northwest punk scene. I was a lot younger than the people who were doing it, but like that inspired me. Riot Girl has a lot of problems, and it's very white. It's very kind of like feminism, second wave. I don't know. I feel like I'm grateful for it, and I've sort of moved past it. However, my style is still very much in like the aesthetics of that time of like typewriter and, you know, cut and paste. But fortunately, yeah, taking it further. So even though I've been making zines for a long time, it's only been in the past few years that I've gotten to do more with like a collective of people. And so since the pandemic, we haven't been doing the Zine Fest, but we've been doing events and more of like community stuff. So it's been really cool to take it from just something for me to sharing it with a larger community. And it's been very much like Oakland, the Bay is where all that's happened. So it's just really cool to be here and be on this panel. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Who would like to go next? Jianna, Gaia?
I can go.
Excellent.
Hey everyone, my name is Gianna. I use they, them, theirs pronouns, and I'm like super stoked to be here. I remember first seeing Avi on a panel at the Black Comics and Arts Festival. I forget what year it was, and just remember my question of like, well, how does someone who's an aspiring like comic book artist get started? And Avi being like, just get started. I'm like, no, that's too easy. And so it's kind of a really sweet full circle moment. And I actually got my inspiration to start because I was going through a lot of life transitions at one time. Like I had moved, I started a new job, I was going through a breakup, and just navigating mental health as someone who didn't know where to start. It was really overwhelming. And so I actually wrote my first comic, and I've been working on my second comic for like 2 years, but it's coming.
Awesome.
And it's been really helpful to incorporate like all aspects of my life. Like I'm a dancer, I've done salsa and bachata for 12 years. I also identify as a farmer and really want to have land at some point in the future, so that folks can heal their relationship to land because we're a part of nature, but also using comics as a way to kind of integrate those. And so that's kind of like the idea behind my comic. And it also has puns because, you know, like sometimes you just need to laugh through it. But also it's an all ages comic. And I've had folks tell me that they love sharing it with like their nibblings or like young children. And then folks my age are like, I really needed that. So after I actually started and then shared it with folks, like the feedback was incredible. So I'm hoping to continue that and eventually maybe even do like workshops on making your own comic, and things like that. Because a lot of people are like, well, I'm not creative or artistic. And I actually have only been drawing seriously since I started my comic in 2020. So I don't have like a background. I just really was like, I'm gonna like move towards this and see what comes out of it. So yeah, happy to be here. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you so
Okay.
much. Hey, Gaia.
Sorry. I figured since you invoked my name, I might as well go next, right?
For sure. Go right ahead.
Sorry for all of the weird technical difficulties. For some reason, the Zoom phone app is like not being good to me right now. But hi, my name is Gaia Weiss, last name spelled WXYZ. I am a creator of multiple sorts. I make comics, draw, make music, work as a teacher, which to me is also an art form in and of itself. I'm actually very proud to say that I am an adjunct lecturer at UC Berkeley as well as at CCA, and that I'm actually teaching the very first ever comics classes at Berkeley right now. So I'm kind of breaking ground at a school that, you know, for better or for worse, I'm teaching there. The comics that I make, I work on a lot of, well, I have been working on an autobiographical / sci-fi comic for way too long. I actually have a pretty storied art career starting at the age of 10. I started going to like art magnet schools, and so I have a lot of technical training. And I gotta say, sometimes it feels more like a hindrance than a benefit, because I see somebody like Gianna who's just starting out and you have all this excitement and like positivity, and I'm just like, I hurt. I've been doing this for too long and I feel like I haven't done anything sometimes, but I know that that's not true. Like for instance, I did a 12-page comic that was really more like posters for the Art on Market Street project, where my work was displayed in the Muni bus shelters from Civic Center all the way to the Ferry Building. So I've had a chance to have my art displayed publicly, and that piece was about my great grandmother and I. So I do also have a strong connection to like ancestral work and using comics as a way of like pushing narratives that are marginalized. So yeah, that's what I do. That's who I am. Thank you.
And to wrap us up, Lawrence, do you mind introducing yourself?
Yeah, y'all can hear me? All right, I'm Lawrence Lindell. I use he, they pronouns, or if you want to use she, I won't trip. I like that too. I make comics, zines, and music here in California. I make comics about Black stuff, queer stuff, and mental health.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So I'm just sort of gonna share my screen again, and we can jump into some of these questions. As I said, I'm not really the host tonight, folks. I'm just sort of facilitating a awesome roundtable with these wonderful creators. So I'm just going to, bear with me, I'm going to share my screen. And as I ask questions, I'll go back over some artwork provided by our panelists. But let's see, share the screen, maybe share the screen. Boom, boom, boom. Where are we? Boom, here we go. All right, can everybody see the screen? Yes, no, maybe?
Yes,
Now
Lola.
we can.
You can? Okay, cool. So my first question really was about the process, the creative process that we have. So our coping modalities and the way in which we incorporate healing and art making into a functional practice. I know I have a daily practice, a lot of you do too, but how does that work in terms of how we heal and how we grow, and how that has impacted your art making? So it's a two-part question, actually. What are the things that you're doing as part of your art practice, and how are you healing by doing these things? And again, anyone can answer. I'm going to mute myself and then just share some of the artwork you guys provided as you guys think of an answer, and feel free to popcorn to the next person. But yes, how are you incorporating your art in your daily practice, and how is that helping you heal and grow? Yes, anyone can answer.
For me, part of my process in utilizing what I call my art piece is called Humanadas. If you take a look at these are inspired by a lot of just types of meditation practices that I've researched over the years. And what I found for these types of pieces is that though they're seemingly chaotic, I've been able to kind of utilize some of the philosophies and research that I've done, not only as an educator, but just as someone who has a fascination with different perspectives of meditation, and utilizing that as a way to kind of let go of the idea of having anything beyond the intent to fill up a page, and allowing my imagination to kind of run wild. And what I find that does is it becomes a form of meditation that allows me to kind of let go, be present with my artwork, and depending on, times of stress or anxiety, I'm able to just kind of sit with something and focus my energy on it in a way to kind of practice mindfulness, letting go. And I think part of that has really helped me at least get past these psychological barriers as practice. I think sometimes as artists, we come to a point where we are at kind of an impasse, or what we call blockages, and it sometimes ceases to be fun, and life kind of intersects with that at times, with whatever we're experiencing. And so being able to break down things in a way that's very simple, at least for me, like I'm able to kind of navigate the chaos of my everyday life by creating clarity and utilizing technical skill, or practicing just being present with the work in order to kind of just explore my subconscious or imagination. And I think that mindfulness practice through illustration, through the use of like words and images, for me at least, kind of compiles everything, and it allows my artwork to kind of both experiment, but also utilize things that I understand and have practiced in the past, but kind of putting in the back pocket, and just kind of letting chaos guide me into being in a state of, present.
That's really interesting that you say that, because I'm looking at your artwork, and one of the things that I feel that is similar is that I do like a lot of contrast, and I see that in your work, and a lot of movement, especially with my geometric shapes. It really resonates what you're doing. And so I'm also seeking ways to calm myself and become meditative. And so do you think repetitive, and anyone can answer this, repetitive mark making is a a way that our brains work to help us calm down and meditate and sort of get into a zone where then we can sort of utilize that space in our brains or that energy or that feeling in other areas of our lives. Because I feel like that the stimulation that I get from doing repetitive mark makings or bright colors and contrast and geometric shapes, sort of what you're doing as well, Dustin, with the spontaneous sort of linear constant drawing that you're saying that you're doing of sort of stream of consciousness drawing. Is anybody can.
I have something to say about that, which is like, sometimes it feels like I have two very different styles in terms of like a representational style that's very like anatomically like accurate and, you know, trying to gain some sense of realism despite the fact that it's a cartoon. And then I have this style that's just like completely expressive, and it's a lot of squiggles and a lot of just like organic shapes. And to me, one of them is very like goal oriented, right? Like I want this to look like that thing that's either in my mind or out there in the world in the case of observational drawing. Whereas the more expressive style is like what Dustin was saying, like this spontaneity, this not knowing what's going to come out when you get started. Like here's a recent piece that I did. I tend to do a lot of faces that are abstract, and then from the face, like I start to see other things within that. So I think that, you know, sometimes I get so bogged down by that representational urge, like especially when I'm working on freelance projects for other people. Sometimes it's really nice to like carve out some time to like do that more expressive, meditative, free-flowing style to remind myself that art can be anything. Like just because it's my job doesn't mean that it has to only be my job. It can still be something I enjoy.
Right. I was going to ask that sometimes that makes you even more stressed out is we put that onus on ourselves to be perfect. And then even though you're doing this for fun, you get stressed out. So I can totally relate to what you're saying. Anybody else have?
Yeah, I feel like that's interesting. When Dustin was talking, it did make me think about, because for me, I didn't come to art through schooling or through an institution. I feel like I sought the visuals as an escape from feeling tied and chained in the writing, because the writing felt so institutionalized. It felt so job-centered, mission, values, that thing they do. And so the visuals for me just felt like a key, and it felt so spacious for me. And so that thing that you said about the repetition, I think makes a lot of sense. And maybe allowed for me a little bit of decompartmentalizing. Anyways, those are just some reflections.
Awesome. This is some of Shani's work. And again, that same sort of stream of consciousness and free flowing, mark making and ink, variation of line. It's kind of something similar that I feel like we're all doing. And I actually appreciate too the iconic imagery, the motif, the African motifs that you're including.
Right, for sure.
Artwork is something that resonates.
Yeah, lots of Adinkra, lots of Nsibidi, lots of even just some of the images from Louisa Tish's work comes through.
Right. And so I feel like Yoruba too as well.
Orisha. Yes, sir.
Someone else wanna?
I don't think mark making is, I'm not an illustrator, so I don't think that shit is relaxing at all. I don't like it. I'm a printmaker by trade, really, so I don't really find it super relaxing per se. I would like to learn how to draw better, but I do know that Linda Berry at the University of Madison, her drawing class, you can't look at anybody while they're talking. You can only have a notebook and you can draw spirals. So when someone else is doing a critique, you just can draw spirals or do it, but you can't look at anybody, because I think people do feel so that feeling of what you're talking about, Shani and other people, where like it's becoming something else and not a function of expression. But I do find a lot of meditation in the lens-based media arts that I practice. I feel like something about going out and shooting observational footage when I live in Philly or here,
Mm-hmm.
go and just kind of being present behind the lens. It's like this. You kind of have to be present because it's not like looking through your eyes. You're controlling this machine that is seeing it. You know, my eyes, I'm not paying attention to these things. I'm looking, but I have access to my peripheral vision. I can see my hand is here. I can see my hand is here without even looking, but the camera can't see that. And so it is a matter of intention and of choosing which images can be focused on at any particular time and how they're going to be framed and how they're going to be shot. And I do find a lot of meditation and like solace and the capacity to see the world in a different way through lens-based media in a very serious way. And I actually think that in terms of, I think my aspiration to like make a comic one day, which I don't have the confidence just yet, but I'm working on it, comes from that compositional framing that happens in lens-based media, where you do have to make pretty critical decisions about how things can be shown. I think comics is a little bit more open than that, but I find that very, very meditative. I don't even really necessarily find printmaking. I love printmaking. I have enough skills at it enough, but because it can be tied to kind of like commerce and the need to like make money, sometimes it doesn't become as fun actually, you know?
Do you feel like that, I'm sorry, lens or the photography or filmmaking that you do allows you to step back and view the world sort of through almost a new eye or other eyes? And that is one of the things that brings you solace, is to that ability to step away from the subject matter?
That is a great question, Avy. I don't think it allows me to step back. I have generalized anxiety disorder. And so I'm not trying to say that for anything except to say that I struggle with a lot of anxiety and a lot of dissociation. And so I feel like if anything, lens-based media helps me remind myself that I kind of need to be like right in the moment. If I'm checked out and not looking at what the lens is paying attention to, then when I look at the dailies, I'm gonna be like, yo, what are you doing?
And I think you can do, I'm encouraging you now to do a comic based on photography. You could do a photography comic, and we do a photography comic, girl.
Talk about me.
I would say, I would also encourage that, because I think that there's this misconception a lot of the time that comic books have to be drawn. Any type of media with images and text is a comic. There's this idea, because the industrialization and commodification of what a comic book is as a product that is sold in an industry, that this is what the art has to look like. But historically speaking, you know, it's always been just the juxtaposition between the words, symbols, and images. And so I do believe like photography with text, or even with the sequence of images, can be just as much of a form of comics and storytelling. So I would, and I would definitely double that encouragement.
And I want to quickly just give a disclaimer to Golden too. I respect your pronouns are he and they, but I say girl to everybody as just as a euphemism. So it's not personally directed, because I always say girl. So disrespect too.
Say less. Talking about, don't worry about it.
Okay, and then also this is a great segue for you, Dustin. We have a comment coming from Brina in the chat asking, what are you listening to something while you're doing your drawings, or you're doing your meditations?
Yeah, so as I listen to music quite a bit already, but one thing I will say of something that I learned from one of my legendary mentors, JT Steiny, shout out to JT Steiny. They are responsible for converting me into zineism. And one of the most powerful things I ever learned, that I actually had to relearn, because this is something I think that is natural for all of us as people who decide to kind of really focus on creativity, is the power of observation and listening and being present. I think there's this misconception, and especially in being present, that you have to be in dead silence. And one of the most powerful things I found to be very inspirational, for instance, like when I'm doing these pieces that I create called as I call them Humanadas, is that I'm not at home in quiet, in solitude. Sometimes I'm out at a cafe where there's tons of noise, there's tons of people talking, there's different people coming in and out. And it's almost like tapping into this instinctual state to which you're listening to the surroundings that you're in and taking that stuff in and putting it immediately in the art. So I feel like, it says meditation. So, but yeah, like for me, the listening part of it can be just as an effective thing to me, when observing, listening, and just almost like going into this automatic state where like I'll hear someone say, yo, what's going on, or something like that as I'm drawing, and I'm like, oh, let's write that in there and just add it. And then we'll extend that to another idea. So it's almost like sampling in a sense, where you're meditating and sampling at the same time. And what it allows me to do in that state, at least, and I'm sure a lot of y'all have done this too, is just that it's just like whatever's there, you put it in there, and it may not make sense right there, but what it's like is like you're almost archiving information, events, experiences. And when you come back to it, which I always say, come back to it later, you always find something completely different, and you find inspiration from that, because when you're so present in the piece itself, you're able to really just kind of be in that state of like, you know, present. And then when you're out of that, you're able to kind of look at it and have a completely different perspective of what you were experiencing, that, which is to me what the muse of inspiration comes from.
Awesome. I mean, that really does sort of move into my next question too, about how you talk a little bit about how your meditation allows you to be present, but also my question was, and of course it slipped my mind, let me go back to the slide. How do you incorporate self-care into your daily art practice? Or is this something you give space to? I know for myself, as I'm writing a zine about grief, I do allow myself time to step away as I'm drawing portraits of family members who've died and have passed away. It'll bring up memories for me to do that. And it's a great way for me to reflect, but it'll also bring up trauma, or it'll bring up a response that will not allow me to move forward until I process those emotions. And so I incorporate time to stop, give myself time to rest, and quite frankly, give myself time to grieve in the moment and go ahead and cry if I need to cry, just get angry if I need, whatever the stages that I'm in and processing the person that's passed away. And so I have a question for all of you. Do you give yourself space while you're making your work, whether it's comics, zines, illustration, or printmaking? If it's about healing and part of your journey of coping or navigating space around mental health, do you give yourself time and space to process as you're making it?
I would love to answer that one. I think the thing that comes to my mind off top is that one of the things I do, I think, for my zine stuff is that I end up making zines about a lot of kind of heavier things. And so for me, one of the ways I take care of myself in community, especially at Fest, is that I don't necessarily always, I'm not going to make myself explain anything to anybody. I'm not really making my works that other people find me legible or anything like that. I'm just like, if it's for you and it resonates, cool, move with me. If not, then move from me. You dig what I'm saying? Like, I'm not
100%.
I'm not interested in trying to like convince you that what I'm doing has merit, or what I'm doing is like I try to keep the focus of my practice on my intention. And
I love that. I had to learn that. So I had to learn that.
Yeah, because I feel like at Fest, a lot of people get, I have these zines. Like there's one zine I wrote about the like African origins of the banjo, which I play the banjo and viola. And, people have their ignorant questions and things they want to say, and I just have no time for that. That's like one of the big ways I take care of myself at Fest, of just being like, if you don't get it, or you don't like it, or you disagree, whatever that is, that's not for me to have to respond to or try to change your mind. I'm not going to waste my time doing that.
I appreciate that. Yeah. I appreciate that so much.
Yeah.
Anyone else want to speak on that?
Yeah, I can share a little bit. I also wanted to answer the other question on how it helps heal, because I think one of the unintended aspects of healing was that because of enslavement, Black people not being able to read and that being banned, just having produced something that's on my bookshelf that I not only wrote, draw, and can read, like something about that feels very healing. And I think it's just something that I remember because it's not that distant in the past. So that just feels like a huge, like, cleansing aspect. And it's something that I can come back to. And I remember, similar to what Dustin said, when I was working on my comic more on a daily basis, COVID has shifted all the habits, but more on a daily basis, I would go to Hasta Muerte, which is a cafe, and I couldn't work on my comic in my room. I had to be somewhere else with the ambiance and the music that they were playing and the interactions, and it allowed it to flow so much better. So I've actually struggled not being able to work on it from home, even though home is really quiet. And then I think in terms of space for self-care, writing the comic that I wrote, because one of the lines is, we're going to figure out where the root of these issues come from. And that's really hard to do. Like, that's not an easy task. That's a lifelong process. But as I was writing, it allowed me to feel things that I couldn't feel because I was going through with life so quickly. So just rereading my comic is self-care. And then because I'm also illustrating and storytelling, which I actually identify as a storyteller, that process is like wordsmithing, like it's a process. So I'll have, something outlined and then decide I don't want that anymore. Like, I need to scrap it completely. And I just let myself do that. I'm like, whatever needs to come through will come through, and trusting that and not forcing that just because I had written this a month ago that I need to stick to it. And really letting the process flow and not trying to control it of like, I said I was going to do this, so I need to. And the other thing is like sharing it with friends. Sometimes I'll share like a snippet, and then their excitement then inspires me again. So those are some of the ways too that I feel like the self-care kind of happens. And then always just taking as long of a break as I need, because there's this pressure to finish something, and like that is too aligned with capitalism. So I'm like, nah, I'm just going to take it. Like, when I need to come back to it, I'll come back to it, because sometimes being outside on farms or like working with plants is that inspiration too. So those are like all the ways.
I really feel you on that, because especially with the heavier topics, I do find myself being inundated with information and images, and being able to write that down or jot it down in a journal, but then having to put it down and come back and maybe draw a panel or two and then put it down and then come back. And so I definitely can relate to what you're saying about just putting it away and maybe not even using it later on.
Yeah, I wanted to totally add on to that, because I agree, like the sense of urgency because of the kind of mass-produced perception of time that we have in the current reality of, where we exist in this kind of, system. I think it's very important to be mindful that that there are other things in life that are important to experience in order for us to tap into our creativity. And there should not be this urgency, especially when we're in the process of healing with our art. And I feel like it allows us to, in many ways, confront these traumas in ways that allow us to cognitively reassess them and observe them, as opposed to, in a way, re-experiencing them in the same way that we were traumatized or processing that trauma. I think it allows us to really kind of delve into our unconscious and really kind of see it from a different perspective. Much akin, it kind of reminds me of almost like a self-induced psychedelic experience.
Mm-hmm. I feel like just as you two were talking, it made me think about something that Zakiya Harris talks about. And I think she's a shapeshifter on IG, but she's talking about spiritual currencies and like what that looks like, the spiritual currency of creativity, of imagination, of movement, of community, and like really trying to reorient ourselves back to things that are more rooted. the other thing that came up was like, I'm like, the social media sphere is a lot. And so as someone, I think someone was talking about the inundation of like just a lot of information overload. I have found a lot of solace in disengaging with social media. And it feels like such a struggle because I understand that it is the place where we are able to share our work and connect with others in all sorts of different places in the world. And it does feel like a vortex that sucks your energy. So I don't know. But all that to say, yes to connecting with nature and then like, you know, the physical realm.
I would love to talk about this too, because I feel like what you all were saying really resonates. I feel like, yeah, the process of making zines and writing for me, like, I started wanting to make zines because I just wrote in my journal constantly. That's like not a daily art practice, but it's just a mental health thing that I do, is just like always writing. And in the moment, it's not necessarily good or, you know, anything for anyone else to read. But like Dustin was saying, like, I'll go back and I'll find stuff that I wrote down, little notes. And if I see the same thing repeated over and over again, which is sometimes what happens, is that I'm just repeating the same thing over and over again, then I start to get an idea that that's maybe something that is coming up a lot in my brain. So I take it from these like sort of stream of consciousness, like I'm so annoyed at, you know, this or whatever. And then in my mind, I can kind of metabolize it into like a greater thing. And that kind of helps me get more clarity around it, or feel less caught up in each and every moment that feels challenging, because yeah, it just allows me to think about it bigger. And then also, just for me, the action, one of the reasons I like typewriters is because the physicality of typing on the keys is so satisfying and like gets out anger. Like, I don't know, it's just even like the modality itself is part of the healing for me. And then I write zines about really personal things, and getting to trade zines with other people who write zines about really personal things feels like such an honor, and is so cool to get to share kind of like our secrets, or, you know, stuff we wouldn't be talking to each other about the day that we met each other, right? But like, we can share our zines with each other, and that feels so meaningful and is a way to connect, especially during the pandemic. I feel like when everything just felt really isolated, to be able to hear how people are doing and, you know, see that people are still making stuff, like that was very healing, or for me too, the community aspect. So yeah.
Unless someone would like to speak further on that, I also have a question just about what is health, mental health, physical health? What does that look like? How would you interpret that for yourself and maybe even for others? When you feel that you're healthy, what does that look like, and how does that impact your artwork?
I think for me, mental health is a process. I don't think anyone is born perfect, obviously. And the idea that, you know, there are certain things obviously imposed by, you know, experiences that we have that are within the human experience, but also imposed by power structures that create, you know, mental health issues. And so for me, it's been a process of identifying, reflecting, and then making action to heal, but also recognizing that it's a constant process, it's a constant journey that we are healing. So health to me is something that we both observe, identify, maintain, and, continue to proceed to be alert for in a way that I feel is a balance of, both being aware, but also moving at a pace to ourselves that is graceful within, and, being gentle in that process too. I think that this idea, especially in Western society, that, mental health issues are something to fear, is something that's an individualistic pursuit. But it's been proven by data and research that it is a communal effort for us to support each other and maintain health for each other, but also making space for us to respect each other's space and experiences, and without shame and with compassion.
Definitely, especially being, like you said, gentle to yourself. I definitely have to unlearn a lot of negative self-talk. And for me, that is a huge aspect of my mental health and sort of growing and being more healthy, is speaking well to myself, and even just capturing negative thoughts in the moment and correcting them. And it's gotten easier, but it still comes up. So I appreciate you sharing that, because being kind to yourself is super huge for me in terms of mental health.
I have a bit of an answer to that question as well. So I'm somebody who encounters multiple mental health challenges in their life and multiple diagnoses that I will not go into in this conversation. But something that I remind myself is this quote, and I just looked it up so I could say who said it, and it's by somebody named Jiddu Krishnamurti, and it is no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society. And I remind myself of that because, like Avy, you were saying just now, like, I also struggle with a lot of negative self-talk and self-criticism. And in some ways, the self-criticism has helped me go far, right? Because I have high expectations for myself. And when I can meet them, I can do amazing things. But more often than not, I find that self-criticism to just be really tearing myself down. And I remind myself that that's what the dominant society wants of me, is to like stay small and to stay insecure and to not create the things that are in my heart and that are in my brain, because they directly challenge that profoundly sick society and they demand something else, right? Which is why it can be scary sometimes to be very overt in your art process. Oh, I think Avy might have shut off. Anyways, I'm going to keep talking. It can be scary to be so open about mental health issues, because it's like, I don't want to become a target, right? But so much of my healing has involved kind of being public about the dirt, the messy things and the painful things, as a way of like just like exercising it from myself, because I can't afford therapy right now. So I use comics as therapy, and I don't care who knows it at this point, because it's like, yeah, I'm out here. Anyways, did Avy get kicked out?
She still got a square. Oh,
I did get kicked out. I'm back, so I think we're still live streaming.
Okay.
Channing, can you confirm that we're still live streaming? I think we are, but I was able to get back on.
Channing said so.
Awesome. Okay, cool.
Also, shout out to that man Lawrence Lindell who wrote that comic.
Since we're here, I
That's
might
that
as
man.
well go ahead. As a person who's made 2 comics called Couldn't Afford Therapy, so I made this, and then another one called Still Couldn't Afford Therapy, so I made this again. I make comics about my mental health in real time. So it's it can be weird because I could be experiencing whatever I'm going through, and then I'll put it on the page and as a way to kind of cope with it. And then as far as like self-healing and like giving my how do you say, like, myself a break, I go and make a comic about making that comic I just made. I'm like that type of person where it's like, all right, this comic is stressing me out. Let me make a comic about how this is stressing me out. And so like I'm very kind of consumed by art because I need multiple outlets to kind of cope. One of the things that I do love that we're all talking about is being gentle with yourself, but another thing is also accountability when it comes to mental health, which we don't talk about enough, because as much as what I go through is like hard, the people around me, it's hard for them too. And I could do certain things when I reflect on it that was like, all right, there's a point in which I gotta be like, all right, I gotta be gentle with myself, but then there's a point where I gotta be like, all right, bro, like you tripping, and it's not just affecting you, so you need to reflect in a way that's like, all right, how can I work through these things while holding myself accountable, but also giving myself like love and space to kind of grow, which is a complex thing because it's not just, oh, I'm sick. Like it doesn't just revolve around me. Like personally speaking, like I know things it's like, damn, that hurt somebody. Like how do I navigate this in a way where I can be like, okay, I can't do that anymore, but also I need help, which like living in that space is hard to navigate. And that's why I make comics about it, because talking honestly about mental health is not a pretty thing. Like, it's not just, oh, I have mental health issues and we should all heal. It's like, nah, healing is rough and it's not comfortable. And there's some things I got to reflect on personally that I got to take accountability for. But then there's things also that I don't need to take accountability for that I was taking accountability for. And so that's kind of where my work focus is on, or at least I try to, because it's not nuanced enough, you know? Like it's always black and white, like either it's real positive or it's real negative, and that's just not how it works. Like I don't know, I've been thinking about that, like every day is like an up and down within a matter of like an hour, where it's like, that was really bad, this was really good, this was really bad, this was really good. And it's like, I don't know, it's hard because it's hard. It's a conversation I have a lot with a lot of people that are close to me of like, how do we take accountability, but also be gentle at the same time? And not just like, I don't want it to be painted over where it's just like, oh, you're sick, so you need all the help. And it's like, yeah, I need help, but also there's some stuff I've done that you're like, all right, bro, like, how do we really look at that and examine that and like heal in a way where it's not just for me, but the people around me too? Yeah.
But also acknowledging the growth that you have made too. I think sometimes we forget to do that. And then also, when you're talking about nuance too, just being comfortable sharing just the truth. That's just your truth, and that being enough, and not needing to have anyone give you feedback, or tell you whether it's good or bad, because it's your truth and it's what happened. It's what happened to you. A lot of my comics, my perzines are nonfiction, and so they're things that actually happened, and they might be ugly, they might be pretty, they might be inspiring, but some of it for damn sure is just the honest truth. This is what happened to me, and I don't really get caught up in how someone is going to receive it. I do try to be mindful of the impact that it will have on folks, but like Golden is saying, that if it's not for you, it's not for you. Especially dealing with the health issues that I've had over the last couple of years. I do try to get very detailed because I feel very strongly about the medical bias and racial discrimination that I've experienced, and some of the things that have happened to me in the hospital and with my diagnosis and the treatment that I've received. And so if folks don't like that or can't understand that or don't believe what I'm saying in some cases, it's not for you. But I do have people that say, yes, this has happened to me, my friends and family and loved ones, especially around some of the stereotypes in the medical field and how they diagnose you and how your treatment plan looks like, or even the service that you receive. And so we have to acknowledge not only that it is something that I want to share with the community, but these are real things that have happened to me, and that it is therapy and therapeutic, but it also, at the same token, for me, I feel like it should be informative. So people who don't know, who aren't aware of the things that happen, you know, they can learn, quite frankly.
I just wanted to piggyback something on what Lawrence was saying. I mean, I do think, healing is warrior shit. It's just the warrior's path, really. It takes a lot of courage to kind of look at what's wrong in the first place, much less try to do something. So I think it's really difficult. And I think in terms of that initial question of what is health, what is mental health, what is wellness and whatnot, I just want to say that for me, I feel like there's one of the forces in life that I think is so destructive, and that is tied to capitalism and into, the so-called like technological age and revolution, industrial revolution, is this idea that, and actually, I'm keeping an eye out, Nicole. I got you. I'm looking to slow my ass down so that you can do what you do. So let me slow it down and just say that it's this kind of really, there's all this pressure to kind of conform to other people's standards, conform to the society standards, conform to our, family of origin standards, conform to our partners, our impossible partners, and if we don't have a partner who might be attract us. There's all of this pressure to turn away from our authentic self and betray our authentic self, abandon our authentic self, criticize our authentic self, second guess and doubt our authentic self. And I think for me, my practice, when it comes to health, for me, what that looks like is it can look a lot of different ways, but it really boils down to me feeling that despite this enormous pressure, and that's 360, that's constant, even when we're trying to detox, like what we're exposed to, we're just, everything about this environment is kind of poisonous. I think for me, it's just a matter of turning to, embracing, accepting my natural self, however unappetizing that is to other people, however unattractive that might be, however people might not understand me, or they might, judge me or whatever. I think part of my process is learning to health is in wellness for me, and the standard that I hold to for myself is just learning to, it's resistance really for me, because I feel that everybody has the right to be who they are,
Perfect
so for
word,
me, I do
resistance.
that.
I said that's the perfect word, resistance. I love
Yeah,
that.
because I feel like if you don't actively do it, it's kind of like it's very corrosive. It's very, very corrosive, and it's insidious, and it's blatant and forceful and violent, but it's also quite sneaky and covert. And it's the kind of thing that if you're not paying attention to it really carefully, can just kind of sneak in there too. It's not just the thing where someone is doing something homophobic or transphobic or ableist or whatever. It's like it's all of that, plus the things that people are doing, and maybe they don't mean to be hurtful, or they don't mean whatever. It's just this kind of being misread, misunderstood. I think for me, health and wellness is just that no matter what the cost is in terms of my relationship with other people, not no matter like, well, fuck what I do. If it's right for me, well, then I'm well and get over it. Not that at all, but more like that at the end of the day, I need to be at peace with who I am. And I really need to accept who I am, who I naturally am, before anybody told me you should be like this. You should be different than you are. Because the fact is, I am going to just be who I am. I could try to be different all I want. It just doesn't work. And it's not fun anyway. So
yeah, peace.
Yeah, that's
You definitely
really it.
appreciate and guard your peace. And so I want to be mindful of everybody's time. We're at 6:00. Channing, do we have questions in the chat? I want to open up the floor to folks that may have joined us if they have questions. And also want to thank you so much, Nicole and Nathaniel, for providing the ASL interpretation. Super, super appreciative. Thank you for taking the time to help make this accessible. And we'll do better next time. I know we're not perfect, but we definitely want to be respectful of everybody and hope that everyone can join us and interact. And so, yeah, I'd also like to give a couple updates. Oakland Creates is going to be giving away a couple of custom Oakland Create hats, some sweatshirts, and apparel, merch, all that good stuff. So stay tuned for that on our Instagram. I'm going to give everybody a chance. Please shout out your social media handles and whatever you have coming up next. I'm just going to popcorn around to start with you, Lawrence. Give a shout out to your social media, your website, and whatever you have. Awesome, because I know you have awesome stuff going on. And then popcorn to someone else. Thank you guys all for joining us. Thank you so much for everyone that's helped out in the chat and volunteered to help make this happen. But yeah, Lawrence, what you got going on? What's your social media stuff?
Yeah, it's just my name, Lawrence Lindell. I got a book coming out next year with Drawn and Quarterly, so that's cool.
Yay!
And some other stuff, but yeah, you don't need to follow me. I don't be doing nothing. But we can go with Polly because that's who I see in my, like, that's next to me.
Hi, the next place you can find Dear Diary is tabling at Oakland Creates. Not, I won't be there, but other people from the collective will be tabling. Really excited. And you can follow us on Instagram at Dear Diary Zine Fest is where we put all our info. Thank you so much for having us and me.
And popcorn to somebody, please.
I'll popcorn to Golden.
Oh, okay. Wait a minute. Social media, DS Press. Was there? Avy, there was something else. You know what? Actually, if I make it to December 2nd, oh God, help me. But if I do, I'll have been sober 10 years.
Yeah.
So I'm very excited about
Fuck yeah.
Congratulations.
through this fucking trash fire, man. I can't believe it. So yeah, very excited about that. And then Jianna, why don't you go ahead and set the thing off?
Dope. So again, I'm Jianna. I use they, them, theirs pronouns. That sounded hella Southern. I'll be tabling at Oakland Creates this upcoming Sunday. And the social media and website are in the works, but I do want to publish a poetry book and then another book that's not poetry, but I don't know what category it is. So those are like in the upcoming near future. And then let's see who hasn't gone. Gaia, do you want to go?
Yeah. So teaching has been eating up a lot of my time. Oh, my Instagram handle is at Gaia W.XYZ. Although next year I think I might start a new Instagram because why not? You know, I have 2,000 followers. Let's just start over again. Anyhow, I have been teaching curriculum for the first time, you know, developing coursework. So comics have been a little bit on the side burner, but I have a Patreon also that I'm going to start updating more, just looking at diversifying the different ways of getting my work out there and then also getting people excited about my work so that it creates this opposite of a vicious cycle, like a virtuous cycle where it's like, oh, people want to see more, so I'm going to make more, and you know, I'm going to get the community involved in different like art contests and stuff. Also, I'm going to be tabling at Oakland Creates. And Dustin is who I will tag.
Hey everyone. So my Instagram and website should be in the chat. It's Dustooned, DUSTOONED. I also encourage you to check out my nonprofit and development Inkflow Comics. We provide workshops for all ages, for all spaces. It's inkflowcomics.com. You can find more information and even apply to our workshops and our future organizing for comic book accessibility. And also, if you can, please follow my almost near release graphic novel, Wallow. It's a Central American Odyssey. It's a story about half of my ancestry in the home country of Nicaragua and about our friend Walder it's based on, and their experience as a Central American migrant worker and how it's like living in Central America. I just want to also say shout out to everybody here. it was very inspiring to be here, and that I'm very inspired by everyone here. So thank you. And I'll pass it on to, I'm not sure, Avy?
Sure, I'll go. Obviously Oakland Creates next week. I'm so excited and so scared. So I'm just mildly freaking out right now. But yeah, Oakland Creates is what I have coming up. I'm working on a bunch of stuff, a zine, a grief zine, a coloring book, and another zine about navigating the healthcare system. So again, please follow us on Instagram, Oakland Creates, on Instagram, Facebook, and then I will popcorn over to Shani.
So lovely to see all of you. I will be tabling next at Oakland Creates, and I'm looking forward to getting a lot more zines. I feel like I'm a fan of Golden's work and have those zines. The God Within is everything. The harm reduction zines are great. Lawrence's The Garden has been everything. Still going back to that per usual. And so looking forward to get more zines. You can follow me. Stuff is in the chat, but you can follow me at www.shani.ealey. I said that so fast and I'm so sorry. I need to work on that. I'll put it in the chat. Thank you.
And do you want to share any other Instagram, Facebook, any other good stuff?
Oops, sorry.
That's okay. And has everybody gone that needs to go? Thank you guys all so much. So it's ShaniEaley.com. That's www.
Oh,
I'm just being so bad, just saying it slow. I gotta tease you. ShaniEaley.com. So I appreciate you guys so much. This is awesome. What a wonderful way to spend Sunday evening. And I'm thankful for everybody that is going to join us at Oakland Creates. It's such a blessing to have your trust. You trust me to put this show on. And of course, I appreciate all your help, all you guys that are helping out. I don't want to start crying, so I'm not going to keep talking. Thank you so much. I'm so grateful for you guys and thankful for this community, and everybody who is watching and helps out. I can't express in words how much it really means to me. Again, thank you to Nicole. Thank you, Nathaniel. Thank you for everybody. We're going to sign off, say goodbye, and I'll see you soon, hopefully in person, really soon, if not online. Thank you guys so much for watching. Remember to like, comment, share, all that good stuff. Subscribe to Oakland Creates YouTube channel, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you so much.